Welcome to the Income Flip podcast. Today, we've got Erich Feierabend with us. And Erich, dude, that's a cool last name. You were saying they're part German, part Greek. Is that right?
Yep. Yes, sir. Appreciate that. Yep. And there's no literal German to English translation, but it's end of work. So if we want to translate that to English, happy hour.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, hey, I'm excited to jump into this session with you because, as is customary on the Income Flip podcast, I love to explore the journey of people's careers, how they end up doing what they're doing, the businesses that they start, the experiences that they learn, the fires they go through, right? The wins, the successes. And then we're going to come full circle to CSSI because it's transparently, like I just did my first cost seg and I was blown away by how much money I'm going to save in taxes. And I'm like, this is a message that we need to get out to our entire community. And so welcome, Erich. And I'm going to ask you 1,000 questions. So I appreciate you being put on the hot seat.
You got it. Appreciate it. And happy to be here, Rob.
Well, let's go back in time a little bit. When did you get into real estate in the first place?
So the background is we're here in Atlanta, live in Alpharetta. We've been here since 2016, but to go back a ways, my family's always been in real estate, not necessarily on the ownership side, but my grandfather was an MAI on the appraisal side, started his own firm with a couple of partners back in Cleveland, Ohio, which is home for me and my wife as well. And my mom was a residential realtor. And so we had my dad being an appraiser, my grandfather was an appraiser, my mom's in residential. So always had that. Our Sunday dinner conversations growing up and even into my 20s were not really anything but real estate. And that was okay. I enjoyed that. And when I got through my undergrad back in 99 from Ohio University, joined National City Bank. They went the way of the dinosaur back in her mid 2000s during the financial crisis. But for about 6 years, my last 6 years at the bank there, I was a private banker and I was assigned to work with the real estate, the team. And so we were working with the high net worth individuals on real estate, the developers, the investors, the owners, and so on, and their families. And it was sort of candid, but looking at the level of success, the families and individuals that we were working with, I always gauged that by how many K1s did they have. And it was an interesting conversation. We work with their CPAs, we work with their law firms, and we just brought that relationship together there. So real estate's always sort of been in my family, my personal interest as well. Having been on the banking side, we were doing real estate deals on that note. And then in 2009, after I'd got my master's, got married, and it's kind of stumbled into a relationship, I ended up joining a national property tax consulting firm that had spun out of KPMG about 5 years earlier. And next thing you know, I'm a consultant, but singularly focused on one line item on the expense statement. And we worked with individual owners of, one office building, 1 4-unit apartment, all the way up to a Fortune 125 financial institution over the course of my 10 years in that space with that organization. And that opportunity in 2009, 6 months later, took me to Pittsburgh, built up the office with that company, ran that for 6-7 years, but transitioned. And then as a partner with the firm, was running the Southeast and ended up in Atlanta down in 2016. So we're in Alpharetta. Been a great ride. And, you fast forward just a bit between 16, 17, 18, I wanted to put that entrepreneurship master's to use a little bit. And look at more than just being a consultant, and ended up creating a couple of partnerships. And as I was just telling you a couple minutes ago, I wanted to learn more. I understood the valuation piece. We were looking at rent rolls and I&Es and what happens with the leases. And then we did all the property tax appeals and saved our clients, in some cases, millions upon millions of dollars. And we saw what the value added. It was real money when you can add to the NOI. If you're an asset manager, you're adding value. If you're an owner or of a business that owns your real estate, you're saving money. And so I've always appreciated the value to that. And pre-COVID, a little bit of that, I was trying to figure out how do I do this. So I was listening to podcasts and trying to educate myself on the other aspects of commercial real estate primarily. And read it or was listening to a different podcast, and Damon John said, if you want to start a business, stop listening to podcasts, just do it. And so just do it. And so
water is warm.
Exactly. And it's unsettling and unnerving, but you know what? You pick the right partners, you get your right advisors, you're a CPA, your law firm, and we've got some great relationships. January of 22, we put our partnership into place with SCEF on the real estate acquisition development side. And within, I think, 10 days, we had our first deal under contract in Aiken, South Carolina.
Okay.
And so that was our first deal. Next thing you know, we own a property in Southern Illinois. And fast forward a couple of years, we've since acquired a single tenant net lease deal up in Pittsburgh, North Hills up in Wexford. We've got a 18,000 square foot strip center with a couple partners that we own in Winston-Salem. And we had acquired it in the mix there in near Mansfield, Ohio, so between Columbus and Cleveland, an old vacant little restaurant, and it had been empty for years. It was we got the right price, and my business partner Sam on the real estate acquisitions is very in tune with the investment community, the leasing in particular. He was a retail leasing guy for many years and still does a lot of that to this day. Called me up and said, Eric, Starbucks is interested. I said, great, Sam. We're not developers yet. We forged another partnership with the folks that built the only other Starbucks in that town that didn't even have in-store dining. And fast forward 2 years later, October of last year, we opened our brand new Starbucks in the market, and they're doing great. So we're real happy with that.
What was the thesis when you guys originally started, Eric? Like, what was the idea?
It was the value add play. We liked retail. COVID was interesting. Did it kill retail? Absolutely not. In fact, I think it made brick and mortar, hometown retail and in Main Street America even stronger. Supply chain issues, you name it. And we saw a lot of opportunity and where the economic drivers are in the markets that we like. And we try to stay in those markets where we know them, we understand them. I've worked nationally on a property tax basis, so I'm very familiar with a lot of markets, but we stick Mississippi East. And being from Ohio, having lived in Pittsburgh, I'm in Georgia now. We like the Carolinas. We like Ohio. We love Western Pennsylvania. So we know those markets. We like value. And so it's easy to say that. It's hard to find those deals.
For sure.
And so you work hard, and my business partner Sam works really hard to find those deals. And when we do, we jump, we move fast. He likes to say time kills deals. And you find an opportunity, you make it work, you get the price, get to due diligence, close it, lease it up, and either you move on and sell it, or you hang on to it, which great. It's a long game. And that's probably my biggest lesson in as many years as we've been doing that. It's a very slow game. If we think it's going to take 2 years, let's just plan on 5. And 5 years is somewhat of a threshold as it relates to the cost segregation component. It's a big piece. 2 of our 3 deals, the Winston-Salem and Pittsburgh, we did our cost segregation studies on them. And like you said, wow. And we got that as a 2024 acquisition. And that was 60% bonus depreciation. I'm sorry, 40%. And so if we had gotten that post January of last year, we'd have 100% bonus depreciation. But at the end of the day, this is real money in terms of tax savings, deductions that roll through our personal returns. And it's just a great way to scale.
It's a great way to compound. It's a great way to compound your wealth, for sure.
100%. And expedite that. That's right.
What I love about your background is you've got the banking side, and you've got the advisory side, and then you have I'm like going out into the world and making it happen myself side, right? That entrepreneurial side. Mm-hmm. And then how did you end up at CSSI? I'm just curious. How did that happen?
Yeah. So relationships matter. And Matt Fossey, who's running the company as the CEO now, I've got years and years of history with him, and we've worked together. We've got some family connections, but you do business with people you trust, and we've worked together. He ended up at CSSI a few years ago, while concurrently, I'm running and building up some of the real estate holdings. And I said, Matt, get me in touch with the right guy. I want to explore the cost seg for myself and our partners on our couple of deals here. And lo and behold, I started as a client first. And having seen that on 2 of our 3 properties that we still own to this day, it's real savings to us. And if we can take that money and get a 10% return with that in the year 1 that we get the benefit, or whatever it may be, we're minimizing our expenses, through the business, through the real estate, and then personally on tax implications. It's sort of the no-brainer. It was actually very synergistic with my other piece of the consulting background on the property tax side. It's just this is a federal a tax mitigation strategy. So I started as a client, and probably May, June of last year, they've got a great program. There's an inside sales team as well that's essentially W-2, but it's an amazing platform. You have a 1099 strategy at CSSI where you've got 300 individual sales representatives that are advising clients, working with their local networks, the CPAs in their circle, of influence.
That's
And
cool.
it's a great strategy. I do appreciate, the running of the business component, the P&L. And when you've got you meet your fixed cost threshold, everything else is upside, and you have a great sales team that they're not just sales. These folks are individuals that they own the relationships with their clients and their network, and the value they're bringing is through CSSI. And so I'm not an expert. I'm not a professional engineer, but I understand the concept at a high level and get better each day in the technical component of it. But it's a great group, great organization, 66,000 studies
Wow.
in 20 some years. It's
Wow.
a well-oiled machine of
That's so cool.
the relationships, the sales team, the advisory component, our ops team, the professional engineers, and it's a very operationally efficient organization. And it's at the end of the day, it's the people that you appreciate. And I've been started as a 1099, and then earlier this year, I actually joined CSSI full time. And
Okay.
so that's how we ended up. I know a couple of my colleagues have been involved with Grid, and I do want to pay you a compliment there, Rob, because I was at your conference up in DC, and to what we were talking about earlier, I think it's very easy to just listen to a podcast and say, I want to be a residential investor and I want to flip, I want to wholesale, whatever it might be. That only gets you so far. It's the relationships. And I think you guys
It
put
is.
on it's not a great show, but it was a very good 2-day event. And the relationships matter. There were a lot of good people that joined. Your team was great. And so we appreciate the opportunity to be a sponsor there. But there were a lot of takeaways. I probably still have 24 follow-ups, for folks that said, I need you. I need a cost egg from you. So we're still working
100%.
through those. Yeah.
100%. I mean, like you'll find in our grid community, you've got, people that are all at all different stages, like people that are just learning, people that are
Mm-hmm.
doing like a tremendous amount of deals. And what I love about it is that people can see themselves in the future, right? Like
Yes.
if you're new and you're in there, you can see somebody that looks like you, that maybe started the way you started, and now they own just a massive portfolio. And so there's a certain level of a proof, right, over promise that people get to
Mm-hmm.
experience in community. So, like you said, relationships matter. So
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about this, because there might be somebody listening to this episode and they don't know what a cost seg study is, right? So let's
Mm-hmm.
start there and explore that a little bit, so that some of our newer members can understand the power of this tool for themselves in their career.
Yep, you bet. And so the technical side, and it's easy to go all the way into the weeds, but to keep it at a high level, let's just use. I think your audience is a lot of residential, right? Whether it's short
Correct.
term STR or long term rentals, it's a similar aspect of the investment side. And when we do a cost segregation study, and so let's just for easy numbers, let's say we've got $1 million short term rental. It's going to be on the beach. It has a pool. some landscaping, driveway fencing improvements on the exterior, and then the interior components. What kind of flooring do we have? Do we have cabinets? Do we have light fixtures? Of course, right? And in short-term rentals, oftentimes they come furnished. And so when you look at that, the IRS, in terms of straight line depreciation, will say it's a 27 and a half year for residential or commercial, 39 for residential. And it's a long game. You just straight line depreciate that on your return here. What the cost segregation study will do, and again, there's other ways to do it, but with professional engineers that are with us at CSSI, it's IRS approved. It's fully audit defensible, and we support that. We've done, as I mentioned, 66,000 studies, and not one has ever triggered an audit. And if any questions have ever arisen, we've answered them. Done. We put pencils down. But we work with our clients' CPAs. And so if we use that $1 million STR acquisition as the example, what components of the property itself can be reclassified? And not just into a 27.5 or the 39-year straight line depreciation. Can we move those into a 5-year bucket? Can we move it into a 7-year depreciation schedule or a 15-year? And so in doing that, we're shortening the life of those components. And the reality is, if we were to look at that and say, is carpet going to last 39 years? No.
Definitely not.
I guess it could, but no. And so the study looks at all of the components of the property, and that's done by our engineers on the ops side, and they reclassify those into the appropriate depreciation schedules. And so you're bringing that forward, and with the 100% bonus depreciation coming back, it was reinstated after January of last year with the One Big Beautiful Bill, it's now back to 100%. We did our studies based on a 24 and we got 40%. And so it was still a significant deduction, a tax benefit to us, but with 100% coming back, you get to take all of that in the first year. And so can you do, what else can you do if you save, let's just use a round number, 25% of that gets reclassified on that $1 million purchase and accelerated as the example. Now you've got $250,000. And then it rolls down to the individuals and their respective federal tax brackets. So generally speaking, we plug it in at 37% effective tax bracket, and there's your deduction right there. So can you, as the owner, investor, as an active real estate manager, go do something else with those savings?
Well, yeah. At that point, you just buy your next one. You just keep
Yes.
snowballing the whole thing.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. Anecdotally, I had a conversation with a couple of clients, and it was a two-part conversation. They led with the cost seg, but of course, in conversation, we did talk a little bit of property tax, and they understood that, so that was easy. But the client said, and I thought it was very interesting, it was more financial engineering, for lack of a better term. The deals didn't necessarily pencil without the cost seg.
Yeah. I mean, that's how somebody might be justifying it, right? It definitely makes sense once you do the cost seg. Like in an ideal world, you want them to make sense, and then it becomes like a no-brainer with the cost seg, right? But I can see people saying, "Hey, it doesn't really make sense unless you do the cost seg." Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. And it's just part of the process. I work with a lot of commercial real estate brokers on whether it's apartments, self-storage, that their area of focus, but particularly with the apartments. And to do the cost seg, it's just part of the playbook. And kind of maybe going back to the podcast type approach, but we see a lot of those multifamily operators, and they're smaller. If they're not institutional level, the REIT level type apartment funds, you've got to go raise that capital. You've got your whole piece of the due diligence. And so what are you doing to maximize your LPs, your investors, which is the priority? Your lenders, obviously, but it's the investors. They're interested, one, because they trust you as the general partner, but also they're looking for other aspects to diversify, and they want preservation of capital. They're looking for the return. So as a prudent general partner and the operator, how do you maximize the value for your investors, for your management, your ownership team? And it's another piece of that. You build that into your due diligence and your investment memorandum, of course we're going to do the cost segregation. But what we're doing a lot more now is on the front end, and I'm working with, like I said, a couple of these apartment brokers up in Pittsburgh. I've got a group locally that they specialize in medical practices, doctors' offices, whether it could be a converted bank for what it's worth. And there's a fair amount of those. Dental practices, vet clinics, and in our shopping center that we own personally up in Winston-Salem, we have an urgent care component as a tenant. We have urgent vet as a tenant. And so we can appreciate that. I've been a client first, so I see the value of that. And it helps the dentist who just bought a $4 million building and is putting $2 million into their build out. There's technical components to it. And if you can get, $600,000 that roll downhill to you as the individual owner, which is your practice, not insignificant.
Huge.
Yes.
I have it's interesting. I think that there was somebody from CSSI that came and talked to us at our company Advance. And she mentioned the whole dental practice piece. And my best friend's wife is a pediatric dentist, and she had just bought a new office, and she had just put in a lot of money into her practice. And I happened to mention it to my friend. I'm like, is she aware of this? He's like, I don't think she is. I'm like, you got to go do this. You got to go look into this right now. Right. Yeah. I think I might've connected them. Is there a particular asset class that lends itself more to doing a cost seg study than others? Right.
Yeah, no, very, very good question. Self-storage is fantastic. It's great. It might be what doesn't make sense, because for what it's worth, almost every type of property does make sense, except for maybe a gas station. And there's some requirements based on the gas station revenues versus a C-store. If it's greater than 50%, then it's a 15-year automatic depreciation. You don't need the cost seg, and you can pull all that into year one. But with 100% bonus depreciation coming back, and it's been gangbusters, to be honest with you, on the STR side, on the LTR side, because I think it can be intimidating if, one, you're not familiar with it. One of my best friends here in town, he bought a small building, bought it for about $500,000. They put $600 or $700 into it, and I said, "You're doing a cost seg on that, right?" He goes, "I don't know what that is." And so we have a lot, and the benefit was phenomenal. I said, "Are you happy?" He said, "Very." Right. The Airbnbs, the short-term landlords, if it's a $300,000 property and you can get a 10-to-1 or a 12-to-1 ROI on the pre-tax fee, because you can get, your after-tax, which is a tax-deductible expense just for the fee itself as well, the numbers make sense. And there's obviously other components, but 200,000 or 300,000, it can absolutely make a lot of sense here. And as long as the hold period makes sense, and this is where we work with our clients and their CPAs on the regular, just to make sure, is your hold, if it's a fix and flip in 1 year, not going to make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. You're just going to recapture that.
But if you've got at least 5 years, and generally speaking, but we've had clients say, you know what, I'm going to exit this in 2 years, but if I can go save $1 million in taxes and go, what can I do with that in 1 year? Can I make 10%? I'm going to go get it. Give me the cost seg study. I'll deal with the depreciation recapture on exit later. And I had this conversation with the 1031 group that was at your conference.
What I think a lot of people don't, at least what I didn't know, is that you can take a building that you bought maybe like 3-4 years ago.
Yes.
And do a cost seg study on that asset, which is what I did. I bought one during COVID, a little river house in March of 2020. And then we proceeded to put like 200,000 into the asset and turn it into an Airbnb. Right. And that happened maybe over the course of a year. And I was like, oh, I should look at doing a cost seg study on this. And I just got back the report. And it's like, I'll save, 60,000 on that one little asset, dollar for dollar. I'm like, that's crazy, right?
It's great, isn't it?
Yeah, I was like, that's crazy. And I plan on holding that for a long time. So it's like, I've already held it for the last 6 years. So I'm just going to continue holding it.
Yeah. But you bring up a good point, Rob. You can go back. You don't have to amend your prior year returns, you can do the change of accounting form 3115. And if it's a 2020 acquisition, we can bring that in. I'm working on a client right now. He's got 5 long-term rentals here in Alpharetta, North Georgia, and didn't know what the cost seg was. We've run the numbers, and they were 2020, 2021, 22 acquisitions. And it's just, you incorporate that into your current year return when you file that. And so you don't have to go through the whole conversation of, amending your prior year returns and all of that. We've got a team that can complete the form for these clients. And then therefore we take the responsibility. We back up our work as well.
What is the thing that an investor should know about a cost seg study that they often overlook, right? Or, is there a aha in doing the cost seg study that you may not be aware of, right, when you first do it?
It's a good question. I think it's just part of prudent due diligence. You're looking at a property. It's going to be an investment. It's an income producing property. It should be just part of the due diligence component. And I've got a great friend. He's up in New York City. He owns north of 2,000 apartment units. He gets it, right? He understands that of course we're going to do the cost seg, but it's very beneficial on that front end while in due diligence. And this is where we've got the team and our analyst team. It's a no cost, prelim analysis, tax savings estimate. And so our team, having done 60-some thousand studies over the years, based on asset class and geography. I've done a fair share of rental properties, short and long term, in the DC market. We're going to back out the land, right? In DC, it's I would say at least 50%.
Yeah, it's significant
to get to the improvement basis. But other markets, rural Georgia, rural North Carolina, Airbnb type properties, that land value's not there. It might be 10 to 15%. So you back that out, but it's, as I see it, because I have been, and I still am, obviously, on the ownership side, it's okay, great. Let's go run our numbers. What does it look like on a cap, NOI, and you apply your cap rate? What's our valuation look like? But also, if we go below the line, what does this look like? And so we're able to give our clients that prelim analysis. Just, we need a little bit of information, timing, purchase price. Having, my valuation and even tax consulting background, is it's not overly difficult for me to hop on, the assessor website. Let's see, what's the land value? I mean, I drove that when we did our cost seg studies. We determined what the land value was. You could look at the county records. And so it's a pretty quick high level analysis. We're going to give a range. And I would say, generally speaking, we are at that absolute high end of the range almost every time. And that way, when you're looking at an acquisition, and I do a lot of portfolio work too. So clients that have, 15, 25, 30 properties, have they all been done, or have they done updates to the property that justifies an update study? And so you can do more than one depending on, the acquisition, the timing. And just had a conversation with one of my clients in the Orlando market this week, and he needed it for 25. He bought the property in 25, but he said, I'm putting $250,000 worth of improvements in, but I need it for 25. My accountant said I need the deduction. He said, go get a cost seg study. So we connected, we finished that study, and we delivered the report to him. And he and I were just talking this week and asked him, you done? Have you finished your work? And now I'm taking that update, the new improvements that were made, and we're going to do an update study for him on that piece and roll that into his 26 return there. So it's sort of that, as much as we can say it's a one and done, it's not, because if we're doing our job, not just as salespeople, we're advisors. We want to work with these clients year in and year out, because like you, Rob, you're not going to buy just one property and sit there. You're always looking for properties. And so I want to be that first call and say, okay, and you can say, Rob, got one. Eric, go get it. Here's the information. Run the numbers for me. And then go back into your due diligence. Does this make sense? Not just from a property performance level, but a below the line type approach as well.
Eric, what about like RV parks or mobile home parks? Have you had any experience there?
Yep. Our team has. I haven't done any specific to my relationships, but within those 60,000, absolutely.
Okay.
You name the asset class, and the folks at CSSI have done it.
Okay.
Yep.
there's a gentleman on our team that does a ton of vacation rentals, like Airbnb vacation rentals. And it's interesting. I could tell a lot of his clients are business owners who are
Hmm.
all using the cost seg study, to defer a lot of
Hmm.
their taxable income. I need to connect you. So don't let me forget after the fact. Like I need to connect you personally with him, right? I think he would benefit just from the conversation.
Hmm.
Um, well, tell me a little bit about like where, like how long do you think we'll have this 100% bonus depreciation like in place? Like during this administration, like what's the talk? You know,
Yeah, that's the greatest political question. And you're closer to DC. Maybe you can answer that for me.
I don't know. I guess people should really, while it's at 100%, like this should be at a
Yes,
time that you should really be looking at this, right? It's not going to get
it's
better than that.
it's and I think that's perfectly said, Rob. Uh, what happened in 18, 19, 20, 21? It was free money. Interest rates were next to nothing. And what happened? It fueled one of the greatest real estate booms of this piece of the generation. And I started in my professional career out of undergrad in '99, and I can remember as a banker, prime was 9.5, and then it drops to nothing. And
Free money.
so it's the financial component of real estate. Jobs matter. And this is more of a broad conversation. The economy matters, jobs matter, and it's not just multifamily or long-term or single family rentals, but we on our real estate acquisitions, we like secondary and tertiary markets.
Mm,
I love Alpharetta. It's home for us, but just maybe me being a Midwest guy, I can't justify $4 million for something, that's a corner lot, great positioning, and the rents probably justify it, where it's just not a feasible acquisition. And frankly, the more, the higher the value and the cap rate, the more it shifts. It's a big swing. So smaller properties, we like that value add. We always buy the real estate first and so on. But it is going back to your question. If you are a student of the game, where are interest rates? Great, it makes sense, right? We're gonna buy low, sell high, and refi when it makes sense, and so on. And as long as we have 100% bonus depreciation, which it is indefinite, it's extended into perpetuity, but things can always change. And so if you get that opportunity, I wouldn't always advise, don't just buy something just for a cost seg,
yeah. Yeah.
but you make sure it's, the
Becomes
right
part of the
demos, the
analysis.
right access, the right property, buy your real estate first, tenant second type approach.
Eric, if somebody wanted to learn more and get a hold of you, what's the best way to do that?
Call my cell. That's the easy one. It's 412-295-1454. And I'll make sure I get our email to you. It's eric.feierabend at CSSIservices.com. I've got a landing page with the company as well. And it's got our calculator right on that landing page.
That's
And
cool.
so anybody can go to my page or just the CSSI main homepage and plug in their property information and get that ball rolling on that free estimate, just to give those clients the high level view. And then if it makes sense, we follow up, we have that conversation, we review, make sure all those questions are answered, and we absolutely will engage and discuss and support our clients with their team, their CPAs. So it's never us versus the CPA. Half the time, the referrals are coming from the accountants telling
Hmm.
their clients, you need a cost seg, go get one, call Eric, and call CSSI. Let's go do this. And we work together. And so, the one client who's a good friend that I mentioned earlier, his CPA firm has a couple of questions on our study. So we're going to have a call and get on the phone with his team, make sure everything's where it needs to be so they can embed the study itself into our client's return.
I
That way
love
it's
it.
good. Everybody signs off, IRS compliant, everybody's happy, and we don't have to worry about all the noise in the background there. Get it done, and off we go.
I just got back my report, and then like there's something that I have left to do on it. Um, I've got to go. I've got to go back and check. I'm like literally just wrote a note. It was like go back and look at like there's a final loop. I was like I was so happy I got it back, and I'm like okay, I've got to close the loop somehow, right? My accountant asked me, do they do the 1051? I forget what it was. Okay,
Thir-
these are all the.
3115.
That's it. The
Yes,
3115.
because it was the prior year. acquisition in service, that's where you don't have to go back and amend your prior year returns, which can be a real problem as far as work and cost by the CPA firm if you have multiple partners. And so the Form 3115 is what we can complete, or the client CPA can complete, and that's what allows the change in depreciation methodology into a current year return.
Got it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what he wanted, because he's like,
Yes.
otherwise, he's like, dude, you have so many K1s. Like, this is just what a nightmare. It was like,
Right. Yeah. My
they'll
buddy,
help
the
do it.
CPA, has said, and he referred one of his clients to us, and I said, Stephen, do you want us to go ahead and do the 3115, or do you want to do it? He said, I don't want to do it. We do the study, so we may as well sign off. It's our work, so we'll stand by it. But it's also a lot of paperwork. It really is. So it's a process, and there's time involved in completing that. So more often than not, we're finding the CPA would prefer that our team does that as well. And there's a fee to do it. It's just embedded into, or it's an add-on to the study itself. But that's where timing matters. And to do a look back, you're still going to get your benefit, especially if it's found money in something that you didn't know you could do from 6 years ago.
Totally worth it. Totally worth it.
Yeah.
Well, Erich, thank you so much for joining us on the Income Flip podcast. I know we've just helped save an entrepreneur a lot of money today through this conversation. If you are, looking at, you probably, let's say you filed your extension and you're trying to figure out, okay, what's my next tax move? You might want to look at doing a cost seg study, especially if you just know you're going to continue buying real estate every single year. That just becomes part of the play. The money you save, you use that money to go buy another asset, and you do it again. And that's how you create the snowball effect. Erich, thanks so much, man. I appreciate the time.
You got it, Rob. Appreciate it. Thank you.